What was it like the first time that you found out that your friend from high school lost his son? This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. Support for the Suffering Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who's the best in men's below-the-waist grooming.
Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle.
Inside the package, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0, Weed Whacker Ear, Nose, Hair Trimmer, and the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant.
And we also got the Crop Reviver Ball Toner. This thing is a life changer. Along with that, boxer briefs.
I'm going to tell you what, these are like high quality boxer briefs, and this is no joke. I'm not saying this just because Manscaped sent it to us. These are nice. My boys are going to be quite happy in there.
You can't tell Kevin's wearing them under the table right now. And we also have a nice travel package.
Join over 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code TSP at manscaped.com.
Jesus Christ, that's a lot of balls.
I guess just saying what I said about finding him and afterwards, I needed to release it. Mm. You know, it was a monkey on my back.
I mean, you held it in for all those years too.
Yeah,
you know.
And since then, you've released it several times that I know of?
Not too often.
Not too often. And is it becoming easier to do?
It is. Sometimes. I think it depends who I'm speaking to and in what context. Mm. You know, if I started talking about it, I mean, I would tear up, but I don't think I would lose it like I did in the past. Mm. I mean, I could say I found him just after he shot himself in the head. Half his head was missing. There was sounds.
Billy Bartholomew was with you.
Yes, thank God, because I don't know what I would have done if I was alone. Mm. And sometimes he triggers me. Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah. I mean, one of my best friends, and, you know, sometimes I have to stay away from him.
Cops that were at my shooting, when I see them, sometimes that triggers me too. That brings me back to it.
But I think Billy understands.
But thankfully, Billy was there.
Yes.
And we've had Billy on the show shortly after you. Billy has his own stuff going on.
Yes.
But thankfully, Billy was there. His command presence, being a fireman, used to being on scene of certain events. He knew how to take control of the situation, because I think at that point you were unable to take control.
No. I couldn't do anything. I don't remember anything after running up to Jimmy. Nothing. I couldn't tell you what I did. I couldn't tell you what I said. I have no idea.
Like you said, Billy took over, though. He called 911 and really...
I have no idea who called 911.
Has anybody ever come up to you afterwards, after hearing your story, and spoken to you?
No.
No? It's a tough one. It's like, hey, I watch you. I've seen you. I've heard you. Why don't you tell me about it? You know
what? I bring up Jimmy's name as much as possible. You know, I'm not embarrassed that my son took his life. You know, and bullying had 95% to do with that. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't 100%. You know, mental issues and.
No, I read a statistic out of this documentary that between 2009 and 2019, that teen depression has risen so exponentially. Now, when we were growing up, how did we handle a bully? And women are far worse at bullying than men. Far, far worse.
I believe that.
They're brutal. How did we deal with a bully?
You fought.
You fought, and there was no bully. A bully doesn't want to go. Your father said it.
Yep.
You know, a bully doesn't want to keep going at somebody that's going to fight back. But these kids are hamstringed. They can't fight back, because if they fight back, they're going to get in as much trouble as the bully.
Yes.
But see, this is bullying to a different level these days because of social media.
Right.
Everything festers on social media and nothing gets resolved.
I think society as a whole and bullying, because of social media, is rampant.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just because you not that you're hiding, but it's everywhere.
And it's not just kids doing it.
Yeah.
Adults are doing it as well.
Oh, yeah. But social media can be a blessing or a curse.
Yeah.
It really can. It depends on the user, just like with everything else. You know, a gun in the proper hands can be a tool of protection. A gun in the wrong hands can be a tool of violence.
Destruction. Yeah.
Yeah, of destruction. That's actually a better word. Lynn, when's the first time that you went to high school with Gene? When's the first time you heard of this story?
So probably
Back in like 1846 when Gene went to high school.
I guess like soon after it happened, not right away, but soon after, like I spoke to some people from high school and they told me.
You were living in another place?
Yeah, I was living in a different area at the time. And a very strange connection happened by a gentleman that I was introduced to like an hour and a half away from where we both live now. By fluke, I was looking to get involved in a different project. I was at a RV place looking to buy an RV to do this cross-country trip, and started explaining to the woman my idea for the trip, the saleswoman, and she said, "Oh, you really should talk to this guy who's got this camper for raffling it off over here for his anti-bully squad." So I take this guy's number, have no idea why I call him because there's no connection to the project I was working on, but I do call him. Turns out
trying to get a free RV.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
I end up calling the guy and we sit down and I have a lake house, which is where he's closer to. And we spoke for about 3 hours. And at the end of the conversation, he was telling me all about how he got started with this anti-bully squad. I was like, you know what? Now I feel like this is a project I should work on because I know a guy that I went to high school with whose son just took his life. I didn't say Gene's name.
Took his life.
You changed my vocabulary with that. I want you to know.
Lost to suicide.
No, that's good.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Yeah. You changed my vocabulary. We'll get into that in just a second.
And so I just mentioned, you know, it happened outside of his house, across the street from the high school. And this guy turns around to me and he says, "You know Gene Hauburger?" I mean, we're talking an hour and a half outside of where we live. And I kind of the hair, it still does, stands up on my arms whenever I think of that story because it was very strange. But of course, it was just new. And he's like, "You should contact him and ask him if he wants to do this." I'm like, I'm not contacting him.
There are not two people in the world with the last name Hauburger.
No. So I didn't contact him. And then probably 2 or 3 years went by and we had our high school reunion, which I never went to one, but I went to that one. And he walked up to me and he said, "Here we have somebody, a mutual friend." And we started talking a little bit. And the next day we talked a little bit more and decided to go forward with whatever it was going to be. We really didn't know what it was going to be, but we knew we wanted to tell Jimmy's story and hopefully have it impact.
Whenever you get involved in something like this, there's usually 3 reasons why people get involved in it. It's mission, message, or money. 3 M's. All right. And if you're doing things for money, you're in it for the wrong reasons. And most of the time, 99.9% of the time, you are going to be sorely disappointed.
And it's not going to be the full picture.
Absolutely not.
If you got money on your mind, that's why you're doing it.
I got to tell you, her heart is totally into it.
It's mission and it's
Message.
Mission. What was it like the first time that you found out that your friend from high school lost his son?
Oh, horrible. I mean, it's you don't want to hear it about anybody, and then it's somebody that you know. I mean, it's unimaginable what they went through, and heartbreaking.
Well, Gene has impacted both of us in more ways than one.
Immensely.
We just talked about it for a second. It's changing vocabulary. You and there's somebody else named Artie Dell, who's a good friend of ours, where I, like everybody else, used to use the word commit suicide. It was very common the way I grew up, and I didn't know that was a bad thing to say to somebody who lost their family member to suicide.
Most newspapers, most news shows still say it all the time.
And now to this point, and I got a problem with this because now whenever somebody says commit suicide, I do this. I'm like, oh. And
I find myself correcting people.
Yeah.
I do all the time. Anytime they say it, I'll correct them. Whether it works or not, who cares?
Because the way you put it to me is because you commit a crime. There's no The victim and the assailant are one.
Yeah.
So, but you've had that big and there's been a couple people in here that have changed my vocabulary. It's post-traumatic stress, not post-traumatic stress disorder. And just being a little bit more kind to people. It's gay, not the F word like you think.
I mean, I've totally, I try and be kind to everybody now. I mean, I moved to Lake George. It's a slower way of life. The people up there are awesome. Everybody is so friendly. Very rarely do you run into somebody, talking about the locals. You know, summertime it gets crowded, so I don't really deal with that. But it's just such a more peaceful way of life.
And do people up there know about Jimmy too?
Not everybody.
Yeah. You don't just openly,
No.
you know, if they know, they know, just the close friends.
Yeah.
Were you ever afraid of being, hey, that's the guy?
No.
That's the guy.
And you know what? It's funny. In the beginning, when I would go shopping with my wife in the supermarket or something, I used to think that people were looking at me.
All eyes are on you.
Yeah. I used to think that was, took me a long while to not feel that way. You know, I don't know why I felt that way, but it just happened.
I think when you go through anything traumatic like that, you feel that way too.
Yeah, I felt that way. I know Mike felt that way.
Like I said, right after my incident, my son was playing high school football. I was a volunteer coach. We're at a game. I thought the whole stands were just staring at me. I couldn't stand on the sidelines. I had to walk around the track and watch the game. Just felt everybody was looking.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's a
weird,
brutal
isn't it?
feeling.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of that is a portion of your life, and not a very positive portion of your life, is out there for public display. And that's not what, if you were to put a resume out there, a life resume to people, that is not what you would lead with. You know, I'm Gene Hauburger. I'm a family man. I got 2 daughters. I got a loving wife. I got a house. I'm retired. All this good stuff.
I was on a Suffering podcast.
I was on the summer. It's the highlight of your career.
Twice.
Gene, we expect that to be on your tombstone someday. Oh, yeah, and he was this.
I'd rather be on the Suffering podcast.
Or it's going to be even worse. The Suffering podcast did this to me.
Slightly dented.
But so how difficult is it to talk about now? Because you're in this new project and this amazing documentary, or you didn't even know what it was going to be at first. You now all of a sudden your life is going to be put on display times 10.
I can't watch it.
It's beautiful. You want to know what?
It's heartbreaking to me watching my family, like especially Amanda and Kelly. You know, that's what I really get upset. I mean, if it wasn't, you know, I could listen to my nieces and my nephews, but it's easier because I don't deal with them every day. But Amanda and Kelly was so strong when she did it. You know, Amanda tried.
Well, Amanda, when you came to Hackensack Brewing Company when we had our event, which was awesome, you brought Amanda, and Amanda's like, no, I don't want to go on. I don't want to do anything. And she sat right next to her old man, and she opened up a little bit and started talking. It was beautiful to see you two together.
I love spending time with my daughters.
You spend a little extra time now.
Yeah. Amanda lives in Hoboken. She comes up when she can. And Kelly comes up when she can.
It's another Hoboken connection, Mike. There you go.
It's really nice.
We could have people looking out for her down there. We got her back.
Off camera, let me know where she is. We got a lot of friends in Hoboken. Not all of them on the right side of the law either.
That's okay, though.
Yeah.
But they're good people to have on your side.
They're good people.
Yeah.
They're good people. So when you first heard about this, tell me about the original project, your original RV excursion.
So I had just written a book about an elderly humanitarian doctor woman who had 8 children, lost.
She lived in a shoe?
She lived in a castle practically.
Yeah.
But she was like a world-renowned surgeon, humanitarian, and I ended up writing her life story. She had 3 kids that she lost, 3 boys that she lost, 2 to a blood disorder and 1 to drugs and alcohol. So I had such an experience writing this book and working with this woman. I gained so much for myself. I mean, I just learned so much from her that I just grew like this enormous heart for old people. So I wanted to go around the country and find an elderly person, a normal, everyday elderly person in every state that had done something really amazing with their life. And I wanted to make a film and just like kind of like the Humans of New York, but this was prior to that, and just along those lines. And just tell an amazing story, an inspiring story. And
I've said this before in here that when an old person dies, when an elderly person dies, a library burns to the ground.
Absolutely.
By you telling those stories, you can keep a little bit. Some of it's always going to be gone because they're not going to tell you everything.
Right.
Because if they never, like, the funny thing about elderly people is they'll tell you, oh, in my generation, we respected women, especially the guys. We respected women. We would never do that. Bullshit. Bullshit. They were worse than us all.
Yeah, no kidding.
They were worse. I never cursed when I was a kid. Stop. They were. Nothing changes over time as far as kids go. Kids are always going to be kids. Young men are always going to be young men.
right.
And but now there's so much time. There's like a myth about them. It's almost like a Paul
Well, this
Bunyan
woman
legend.
didn't. It wasn't a myth with this woman. I mean, she had started this nonprofit in Kenya and like really lived an incredible life. She became a surgeon at a time when women weren't even having careers, and then had these 8 children, then lost 3 of them, and then took her pain and went to Kenya, where she started this nonprofit that's still going today. And that was like 20 something years ago.
Saw some real pain.
Yeah, she saw unbelievable pain, and just, she just did amazing things with her life, and she was so humble. And at any rate, that was the trigger for me wanting to continue finding people like her.
Now, what was the draw to that type of story? Was it because of the perspective that it gave you?
Well, no, it actually, another long story. I had an accident and I broke my jaw. I was riding a bicycle. I flipped over the handlebars and broke my jaw in 3 places, knocked out a bunch of teeth, and I had to close. I'm a photographer. I had to close my studio down, and I was a year recuperating. And during that year, I was watching a lot of what was on television, which was all these women that were in the media for all the wrong reasons. It was the era of like Britney Spears clubbing cars with baseball bats and Anna Nicole Smith and all of that nonsense. And I was just kind of getting frustrated. I had my mouth wired shut, so everything was pissing me off.
Couldn't say anything.
But I was watching a lot of TV, and I was like, oh, this
what-
is ridiculous.
You know where I'm going with that, Gene.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, how do I nicely?
Oh, don't.
No, I can't.
See, that's something I'd usually say, and I
can't.
kept my mouth shut on that one.
I forgot whose company I was in here. Anyway, that's kind of how it happened. So I decided to work on a project that I could focus on women that had actually done something that our younger women should be looking up to. And so I called this doctor who I knew of from our hometown, and she willingly sat down with me, and what I thought was going to be her in a piece of a project, I ended up writing her whole life story, and it was an incredible experience.
Because that's what a hero is. So this woman sounds like a hero.
She was.
All right, a hero is an ordinary person put in extraordinary circumstances. Jean is a hero.
Yes.
All right.
Far from it.
No. Not in my eyes, anyway, brother.
Absolutely.
And that's really nice to tell those stories and not tell a story about a crazy famous person who is exhibiting all the bad behaviors and doing all the bad things that they possibly can do.
Because that's who kids are idolizing these days.
And I'll tell you the truth. I mean, after I did get that, I had done a short documentary about her life, and we started going around to schools and doing school programs. And in the interim, I was writing the book at the same time. And my goal was just to offer something better for kids to look up to. And it was so well received. Like, the kids were just grabbing it. Like, and it was so fulfilling for her. It was like a triple play. Like, great for her, great for the kids, great for me. I got to see.
Well, give us the book. You're keeping me in suspense. Give me the book. Give me her name.
It's called A Wondrous Journey, a small book with big lessons, and it's by myself and Dr. Martha McGuffey. It's her life story.
Dr. Martha McGuffey.
The book was awesome.
Yeah. Now I gotta order.
I'll get you a copy.
We've become quite the collectors of authors' books that we've had on the show.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the funny thing is it's a natural progression from being an author to a documentarian. We had a gentleman in here, his name was Seth Ferranti, and he did a lot of time in prison. So he wrote 25 books in prison, got his master's degree in prison, and really used his time for good. And then when he got out, started making documentaries. His documentary White Boy is just got picked up again by Netflix. And his other documentary, which when he was in here, he debuted, is called Nightlife. But he started a writer. And now that he's moved, I guess he did everything that he wanted to do in writing, and that was the natural progression. The visual, because a documentary is a visual book.
Right.
Right. So you have this serendipitous, it's funny, you know, today's social media question was from serendipity. You have this serendipitous meeting with a guy at an RV park.
Yeah.
And you hear about your old high school friend, a story that you're well aware of.